And those are the variables that you can control: how many people you're talking to and how good you are at getting them to take action on whatever it is that you're telling them to do. Welcome to the Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Bella with chrisbello.com. And today we're going to be talking about MMA. And I'm not going to be talking about the fighting MMA, not mixed martial arts. We're going to be talking about money-making activities. So this is something that I heard recently on a business coaching call I was on. There's a guy on the call and he mentioned, I know that if I just focus on my MMA and I bust my ass, I can pull in $200,000+ a year. He knew that he could do it. It was just a matter of getting himself to do those MMA activities that he had been procrastinating on and delaying. Activities such as reaching out to current clients and prospects, asking for referrals from existing clients, as well as doing business development activities, networking events, shaking hands, kissing babies, all that kind of stuff. Speaking of shaking hands, there is a quote I remember hearing that says, the more hands you shake, the more money you make. I believe I heard Brad Lee say that on a podcast interview I was listening to. And business is really a contact sport. You can't just sit there and passively hope for things to happen. Sometimes that is a little bit of my strategy with creating content and focusing on attraction marketing. There was a funny meme in one of those real estate Instagram pages where it showed Professor X from X-Men, and he's like holding his temples with his fingers, like as if he's doing his mind control stuff. And there's waves coming out of his head. I'll flash it up here on the video if you're watching the video portion, but I think if you know X-Men, the cartoon, and Professor X, you know what I'm talking about when he's moving stuff with his mind or getting into someone's mind type thing. But the meme was showing the waves coming out of Professor X's head, and it was like me attracting new business, trying to get new leads. That is a strategy that I have been doing through my content, and it's great, but I realized that it's not predictable and I have to be more proactive. Business is more of a contact sport. I've got to be reaching out, and so do you. You can't just wait for opportunities to come to you. Oftentimes you have to go out and create them. And so it's time for me to make a little bit of a shift, because let's talk a little bit about the attraction versus the push. Attraction is maybe you make a bunch of YouTube videos and pieces of content on social media and people are interested. They choose to reach out to you. They book a call. They're a lot more likely to want to work with you because they know you from your content and they've already consumed some of your content. Versus push is when maybe I would text or call someone and ask them directly for the business or for the referral, or if I have an opportunity to see if I can help them sell their house, like if it was a for sale by owner person, for example. And that is me pushing on to others and trying to get them to do things that I want to do. Whereas attraction is them making the decision and coming to me without me having to force them or push them or follow up very aggressively. And so I realize there's a little bit of a mix that needs to happen there. And I'm not super salesy. As I have said before, I don't believe that you have to be. Most of the salespeople that I've met are more consultative, if that's the right way of saying it. They're not super hardcore closers, hardcore salespeople. They like to help people, teach them, educate them, and then ask for the sale. And so I do realize I need to be more proactive, and perhaps this resonates with you too. If you know you need to go out there and drum up more business and take more action. Now, while I do not necessarily want to cold call, because I don't even answer unknown phone calls for the most part, I could email people, I could DM them, I could send them voice messages, and I can go to networking events, and you can do this too. And it works really well. I have a perfect recent example. If you heard the podcast interview with Peter recently, that was a result of me talking to my business coaching group and say, I should do more podcast swaps. It's been a while since I've been on some other podcasts where I get exposure to someone else's audience. They get exposure to my audience. So it's a win-win. And I shot a few people DMs, and he was one of them. And he replied back, yeah, let's do it. I'd love to connect. He followed me. I followed him. We had a great call. We talked for 2 hours. He was on my show and then I was on his show. And now we're going to get to promote our content to each other's audiences. And we have a cool new connection. We actually already scheduled a follow-up Zoom call for 1 or 2 weeks out just to touch base and see how else we can help each other and just learn from each other, since we're on a similar journey. I was pleasantly surprised and perhaps reminded of how easy it can be oftentimes to get a yes. And it's not always going to be a yes. We always fear rejection. We fear getting the no's, but you've got to put yourself out there. If you never put yourself out there, you're never going to know. And all it really does take is one yes. Another thing I've been doing that you can easily do too is host a free training or webinar type thing and truly try to add as much value as possible. Like give it all away, make sure they walk away, your audience walks away with something that they can actually implement immediately, or they have some implementable action steps that they can do during your training, which is what I've built into my free training. And after adding as much value as possible in about 30 to 40 minutes and answering some questions, I make my paid offer. And this is something that I need to work on because, again, I feel I need to overcome my limiting beliefs around sales and feeling grimy and slimy, or whatever those terms come to pass, because I know that what I know and the knowledge that I've acquired is actually very valuable and helpful, and can free up so many real estate agents who are grinding and burning the candlestick at both ends. And I also had the validation from a first few people who signed up and paid for the course, who did tell me, this is amazing, you did a great job, and this is worth more than what you were charging for it. So that helped me also be like, okay, cool. It's not just me. I'm not crazy. I'm not overvaluing my product that I've created. I am delivering and on what I promised. And so some people have taken me up on it. And then I did another free training, made my offer. Maybe I didn't pitch it as well. No one took me up on that one out of the 7 or 8 people who had jumped on. And I've got another free training coming up where there's probably going to be 20 or 30 people, and I'm tracking my numbers. So these are some of the things that I want to track: is how many people are RSVPing, how many actually show up. So I kind of know a percentage of a show rate, maybe 70 or 80% of those who RSVP actually show. If not, I think more conservatively, probably 50% is what you can expect. So let's say 20 people RSVP, 10 people actually show up. Of the 10, you make your offer and 20% or 10% convert. So maybe 1 or 2 people actually take you up on the paid class or training. And then you can just reverse engineer and work your numbers and say, okay, well, if I had 20 people show up, or 20 people RSVP'd and 10 showed up, how do we get 40 to RSVP so that 20 can show up, assuming these same ratios? And you can kind of figure out your numbers from there. And then remember that it only takes one yes for success. I interviewed a guest on my show, Matt Aitchison, a while ago, and I remember he had a poster behind him, and it just said, I found it on Google. I'll flash the image up here on the screen. It says failure, failure, failure a bunch of times in the background, and it's kind of grayed out where you can't really see failure unless you look closely. And then in the middle, in big font in gold text, it says it only takes one yes for success. So out of all the hundreds of failures, if you get one yes, that is a win. And maybe you get one yes out of 100 asks. That's actually like what it takes to be successful, is just continue to ask and focus on improving your conversion ratios and talking to more people. And those are the variables that you can control: how many people you're talking to and how good you are at getting them to take action on whatever it is that you're telling them to do. One more thing to note is that you really can't just measure the desired outputs. You have to measure the inputs. This was something that I struggled with for some time, because I would just put goals on my whiteboard like, oh, I want to make 200 grand this year, or 300,000 in commission, and do this many deals. But I didn't have the inputs. I wasn't tracking the activities that I was doing that will lead to those results. So I was tracking the wrong things in a way. You can't really accurately track the outputs, because you need to focus on what your inputs are. And I actually just got validation on a book club call I was on this morning. As of the time of this recording, I do this weekly book club, and right now we're going through Atomic Habits, and we've covered a bunch of great books like Tools of Titans by Tim Ferriss, for example. And there was a top agent on my book club call, real estate agent, who's on track to close 500 deals this year with his team. And one thing he mentioned, I wrote it down because I wanted to share with you today on this episode, is that he stopped tracking closings and potential commissions, which is, if I'm being honest, it's something that I do track, and I want to know what's coming down my pipeline. How much can I expect to make on these next few deals? He said he stopped tracking closings and he started tracking his activities. And he also said on today's call that he actually works less than he ever has before. He coaches all his kids' soccer games and softball games and basketball games. He's off work at 4 or 4:30 p.m. every day as a real estate agent, and he's making more money than he's ever made before. So just a testament to the fact of tracking the activities, focusing on the right things, and the outputs will take care of themselves. So with that said, what is it that you can focus on today? What are your MMA, your money-making activities that you've probably been ignoring, or maybe you forgot about them, or maybe you're not even sure? You don't have to really figure it out on your own. You can go get insights from experts in your field. No need to guess on what those activities should be. And there can be some flexibility here too. One quote that I shared on the book club call this morning, because we were talking about different strategies and lead generation. This is a concept that I heard, that everything works. You just have to work it. So whether it's cold calling or door knocking or social media posts, or you're doing podcasts or YouTube videos or networking events or hosting networking events, like everything works. You just have to work it. And oftentimes it works better if you really hone in on one or two key things and become a master at that, become an expert and really get good at those things, instead of trying to do all of the things all of the time and only doing them kind of with a half-ass effort. That's going to be a great secret to focus on in terms of getting really good at something and seeing an ROI. So let me know in the comments below, if you're watching this on YouTube, what are the activities that you're going to start focusing on? What are some of the MMA activities or money-making activities that move the needle for you in your business? And please remember to like and subscribe if you have not already, as that helps me grow the channel and get this message out to more people who need to know this information. So with that said, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to catching you on the next episode. Make sure to connect with me on Instagram if you're not already. Make sure to grab my free scorecard at chrisbello.com/free. And you can also jump on my email list if you're interested in hearing from me a couple times a week. I add as much value as I can. I'm trying to get better as a writer. I am working on it. I'm flexing the muscles. I am not making a million pitches and trying to sell things through my email. It's simply elaborating more on the piece of content that I'm sending out, or talking about a problem that I overcame, that kind of thing. So feel free to check it out if you're interested. And if you're not, you can always unsubscribe at any time. Your information's safe and all that stuff. You know how it goes. But with that said, I'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks so much for your time, and catch you soon.